lounging, son.
Welcome back to the Comic Lounge. My name's Ryan,
And I'm Manny.
and we are going to talk about another dope book that came out this week. We're talking Spectacular Spider-Man by Greg Weisman, Humberto Ramos, Victor Olazaba, and Edgar Delgado. But before we get into it, I just want to remind everybody, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Check out some of the dope content we have on the channel. We do all sorts of stuff on the channel. We do single issues, hardcovers, arts editions, interviews. So check that out. Hit the subscribe button. And now let's talk about this awesome Spider-Man book, which I don't know about you, but actually, no, I do. I think I showed you the cover the minute it was announced, and I was like super
Yes.
stoked because I love seeing the two of them team up, and I love Humberto
hmm
Ramos. He's one of my favorite modern day Spider-Man artists.
Agreed, man. I loved his run that he had, years ago, and I was so stoked when you sent me that cover because I was like, man, like you said, these two characters together are like the perfect like buddy cop sort of relationship. So I'm on
And
board.
and Greg Weisman has worked on the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon show too, so like
hmm
he's got a history with the characters, or with the character, I mean. And before we like actually dive super into this, my feeling out like just a few pages in was like, this is kind of the Spider-Man comic I want to be reading. It's light, it's not, bogged down with, a bunch of other, I don't want to say other bullshit, but not to say I don't like Zeb Wells' run, but this is kind of what I'm looking for in a Spider-Man book. So it's nice to see that we have this to go to as well.
Dude, you're right. You took the words out of my mouth because I was gonna say the same thing. Like I was like on board about, and I'm not saying this to slight it at all. Like how breezy it was and how quickly it moved, and it's like you can tell that Weissman has a background in animation by the way he writes because everything keeps
The
moving and
pacing.
it's fun. Yeah,
Hmm.
the pacing is great, and you said it's not bogged down by a bunch of like storylines that are coming from other books or whatnot. And not saying continuity because this is in continuity, but it seems also very self-contained. Like it's like an animated show, man, and I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's like a double-edged sword. I've complained about not having long runs by writers, right? And having things pay off over time. But I almost feel like sometimes it's too bogged down by like this long running storyline to where like even the arcs within between sometimes don't necessarily feel complete to me, because it feels like it's just like, I don't know how to explain. It's hard to explain for me, but I don't necessarily feel the payoff every time an arc ends because it still feels too open-ended sometimes.
Yeah.
Not just, I'm not talking about just a Spider-Man, but in general. So like for this to, I miss those one and dones, or where like you feel like you got a complete story, but there is the cliffhanger. Like
Yes.
that's what comic books should be. You should, like,
Mhm.
they're expensive now. Like you should feel like you got a complete story, not like you got part one of 12. There should be like that lead into the next chapter, but also having, feeling satisfied with the read. I felt super satisfied with it. The dialogue in here, this banter between Miles and Peter is absolutely perfect. This, like,
It is,
I
man.
thought you said it was a weekly get together, nothing arachnobatic about it. Arachnobatic, like that, I've never heard. That's a made up word, but it's so fucking funny.
It is, man. And I even love like the intro. It's like a back and forth between them. My name
Yeah,
is Peter Parker, and I was bitten by a
yeah,
radioactive spider. Many
yeah.
years later, I, Miles Morales, was bitten by a genetically altered spider. Like right off the bat, the book is telling you like what kind of like feeling it's gonna have and how quickly it's gonna move. I mean, that's one of the best like intros Marvel has had in one of their books in a while. Like I
I
was literally
agree.
like just smiling reading it.
Because it's them introing it together. Like they're just sitting
Yeah.
there, you know? And then you go into the past where they decide they're gonna like meet up. I love that it's on Wednesdays, like
Yes, dude.
comic book day.
This book was very meta too. There's a lot
Yeah.
of meta jokes in it, that like I wanted to. It almost reminded me of Daredevil. I mean, not Daredevil, Deadpool to a certain degree.
I love how he says prophylactic, and then he laughs at himself, and Miles tells it to stop giggling. He
I,
calls him a child, and he's like, I'll stop eventually. Like,
I know,
I
and
love
you
this.
think that
Yeah.
would be the other way around, like Miles is being the immature one because
Yeah.
he's a kid, but no, it's fucking Peter. Like
Dude, I love this version of Peter, man. Like, we don't get to see him like happy-go-lucky or jokey as much in the ongoing Amazing Spider-Man book. So it's cool to see him kind of like not bogged down by a bunch of like trauma or bullshit. Like we're getting to see the side of Spider-Man that's fun to read, like, because
yeah,
sometimes when he's all sad and like stuff like too much, or like he's got too many problems, like yes, that's a huge part of what makes Peter Parker Peter Parker. but it's these moments too. And I think finding that balance, he finds the balance here because, like, yes, it is jokey most of the time, but it is like a really good like band relationship between the two of them, because
And
like
here, the panel I wanted to mention is when Peter's like, and believe me, it feels like I've been at it for 60 years or something. When
yeah,
I'm like, God, haha,
I love this. Like, I've got some classic zingers I could lend you. I just so funny, dude. And so like, okay, they're like, oh, we'll take time to touch base once in a while. Everyone's at 4, and I promise nothing arachnobatic about it. And then it goes to now he's like, my bad. And then, they're fighting the jackal. Peter makes a comment that he's never been this hulked out before, which is true. We've never seen the jackal this massive and this hulking. And then we come to this court case, which there's no connection to this guy, but obviously it's going to play out. It's just a one pager. I like that, within the story, we're getting a little bit of what's like that's perfect, right? We get just a little
Mhm.
touch of something that's going to pay off later, but we don't spend a bunch of time with it. And we go right back to the fight. And most of this comic book is, like I said, the balance is we get a lot of action, a lot of fight scenes, getting to see the two Spider-Men doing superheroics, but then we get this where Peter takes him to his, alma mater, and they're gonna go to the coffee shop. This coffee shop scene and with the way it plays out was like one of my favorite parts because
It is.
Peter just wants to become a regular at the shop. So he's like forcing this dude. I mean, it shows up later, but he's like forcing
Yeah.
this dude to memorize his name and his fucking order. He's like trying to convince Miles to go to college there. And he's like, I don't know. I'll thinking about it. And then he runs into Sean Nguyen and the ex of Flash, right? Flash Thompson.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then Miles runs into an old buddy, and then he's all of a sudden he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm definitely applying." And I love how Peter's like, "Oh, so now you're definitely applying," because he's like watching him from behind. I love this stuff, dude. So obviously his friend is gonna play a part moving forward,
Yeah.
at least in this arc, because like we'll see him at the end. But
Yeah.
again, just super fun. I love that Miles webs him on the mouth. Then again, so that like the Jackal has ties to one of Peter's old teachers, and they met him at the comic shop, or at the coffee shop. So it's like all these like happenstance meetings and like all these coincidence meetings. This part right here, webbing a guy's mouth over his mask is both ineffective and yucky. But again, dude, I love Humberto Ramos. I think for me, he's the best modern day Spider-Man artist, hands down.
Yeah. He's great, man. He captures like how fluid and like in constant motion I think Spidey should be. The kinetic like energy that
Yes.
these pages have.
Again, another meanwhile scene. So I don't know how that's going to play out moving forward, but I love these pages right here. They're just
Yeah, these were my favorite, man. This whole thing is like just it bounces with energy. Like I love that Humberto Ramos has like enough of a cartoon vibe that I think
yeah,
Spider-Man kind of needs in a way.
right. It's also cool to see his art style evolve from what it was in the 90s and stuff because it has changed, Like I first saw his art on Impulse when he was doing
Yeah,
like Mark
same.
Waid. Again, so I don't know what all these scenes are. I'm really curious to see how those will play out. That's the one thing. This is right here. The fucking the fucking 12 panels of Peter trying to like talk to this guy at the coffee shop and get his coffee order right. I don't know why, but it made me laugh when I was reading it. And then finally success. He's like, I'm a regular, and it only took 12 weeks.
He's so proud of himself too. Like I
Yeah.
love the way that he draws that expression on Pete.
Yeah.
He draws a good Peter too.
Oh yeah,
Like
dude. He does everything. I love everything about this book artistically. The
yeah.
writing is great. The fight scenes are great. Like
All this
again,
webbing is so awesome too. I love this sequence with them like just
yeah.
piling web after web after web after web. Like
I
it's
love how they said they're finishing each other's sentences. Dude, we're so in sync. Jinx, you owe me a medium ice half and half latte with a shot of espresso and a his coffee drink. And he's just like he's just like you're such a child. Again, this is what I want in a spot. I want to be able to like chuckle to myself, have a little laugh when I'm reading a Spider-Man comic because that's what makes Spider-Man to me one of his like most endearing qualities are his quips
yeah.
and his humor.
He's
And
one of my favorite characters, man, and I've loved him since I was a kid. He's a character that got me into comics, and I when I was reading it, it was like that.
so we end on a cliffhanger. The two Spider-Men swing away, and we see Miles friend at the end. So I don't know, again, where's that going to lead? I'm not sure. I love the letter of how they got Greg Weisman on here and how they paired him with
Yes.
Humberto Ramos. Fantastic issue. I will call this out just because I think this is one of the best ads for a Fantastic Four comic. This
Oh yeah.
Storm by Alex Ross, fantastic, no pun intended. But this Spider-Man comic, if you've been out of if you haven't been reading Spider-Man comics for a while, which I can completely understand why some people are not, like for whatever reason, this is such a great entry point back into
Yeah.
Spider-Man comic books. Well worth the $5. It's an oversized issue, great
Mhm.
writing, great art. Go pick this up.
Immediate add to the pull list. And like you said, man, if you've been wanting to check out a Spider-Man book but are a little bit overwhelmed by what's going on with Amazing, which it's really heavy storytelling right now. This is the perfect antidote. Definitely pick it up.
Hell yeah. So go pick it up. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, hit that bell icon so you're notified every time we drop a new vid. And on that note, we're out.